Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Vanguard Northeast Realty in Scarborough, Vanguard NE, Norman James in London, Ontario, Mike Augello in Cheektowaga, New York. Mike, did you like that pronunciation?
Yeah, it's very good. Good morning, Norman. I wish the Leafs could play defense as well as you pronounce Cheektowaga.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy 1-year anniversary, by the way. Today is the day. 365 days ago, we did our first podcast, reinvigorating, reincarnating the Leafs Convo podcast. Our first episode, wait for the creative title, Panthers v. Leafs pregame. Unbelievable stuff. And then from then on, it was just all downhill. Incredible. Let's talk about the Leafs at the Flyers from Wells Fargo Arena. What a fishy title for a stadia. Wells Fargo. Like, do you come out of there more in debt than you did when you entered the place? I mean, come on. Anyway, that's
it's a better name than it used to be. It was the First Union Center, so my friends in Philadelphia called it the FU Center.
You know what? I love Philadelphia. I watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and they're always picking at Philadelphia. I love Philly. I love, like, you see when the players are up against the plexiglass, up against the boards, and the fans are looking at the players, and they're FUing this and FUing that. And if it's a Leaf, they're swearing and cussing. And when the Leafs score, they look like they want to start a fight. The passion there is second to none. And I'm going to tell you right now, right off the bat, I have a crush on that Flyers jersey. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the original Flyers orange and black. Are there two colors that represent hockey better than orange and black? I don't know. I mean, come on.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say you had a hankering for their mascot, because if I was in favor of assassinating one mascot in professional sports, it probably would be Gritty.
You know what? Somebody should have Twisty the Clown from American Horror Story as their mascot. But Gritty, I got all kinds of time for Gritty. You know what? I have lots of time for the Maple Leafs right now too, Mike. The 5 games to go. All they need to do is go 1-1-3, and they'll hit the century mark for points. Forget about. I like the headlines. The Leafs drop down in the race for the Atlantic. Home ice advantage in the Atlantic. They're not catching Boston. Who cares? They're starting on the road. That's what it's all about. Between now and Game 82, and then into April 10th, this team should just be focused on collectively preparing for what's going to be coming in the playoffs. Individually, do your best. I don't know if it's Connor Brown, Freddie Gauthier, I don't care, Martin Marincin, whatever, guys. You're not auditioning for spots in the playoffs. You guys all should expect to be contributing in the playoffs. Between now and then, get your asses ready to go.
Well, I mean, the encouraging thing of the last 2 games is that, some of these players who, like you mentioned, Connor Brown, Patrick Marleau, Kadri, Nylander, they all had long scoreless streaks, and they all got on the board. So that's encouraging that they're sort of stepping up their play going into the playoffs. They need those players. They need secondary scoring on top of Matthews, Tavares, and Marner to be able to beat Boston. But yeah, this race is over with. There is no race for home ice advantage anymore. I don't care. They're I believe with the point last night, they're 4 points behind Boston. Boston has a game in hand. That's a Grand Canyon size cavern that I don't think that you can make up unless Boston loses their last 6 games, which is not happening. So right now the focus of the Leafs has to be playing the right way going into the playoffs, and that's where I'll swing to the negative here, because they were playing defensive hockey. They were playing the way I think Babcock wanted them to play, and I think they scored 5 goals in 4 games. Now, that's the problem with this team. The problem is when they play a shutdown defensive style, they're devoting so much energy to it that they for some reason cannot produce offensively, even on the power play. So the last 2 games, they've put the throttle wide open. They score 7 goals against Florida, but they let in 5. And then last night, they had a good first period against Philadelphia, and then they stopped playing in the second period, and Philly scores 3 goals, and then they have to come back against Philadelphia. It's infuriating sometimes.
It is, but is this team standing at the gate right now and just ready to, bowl it down and win a Stanley Cup? Or are we? Is this team still cultivating, still becoming something that we hope it will that will eventually result in a true Stanley Cup contender, ultimately winner, Mike. I just don't. I feel like there's an immaturity here, a lack of maturity, a group that hasn't reached the zenith when it comes to just overall cohesiveness and growth. And who knows, Mike, maybe in 1 or 2 years, there are a few other pieces that will be added to this puzzle after some subtractions that truly make the team what we want it to be.
If fans have settled on the reasonable expectations, not winning the Stanley Cup, but winning a round, this is still a concern because you're going to face Boston. You're going to have to play a more efficient two-way game. And, instances like last night where, I said it on Twitter, Martin Marincin practices the open door policy on Travis connecting and basically rolls out the red carpet to wait for the net.
Wait a minute. Come on. I can't, you know what? I can't defend Martin Marincin. I don't know what he's doing in the NHL, but some of our data buddies tell us that he's the second coming of Doug Harvey. So we'll that remains to be seen. 5x3 in the community platform on the YouTube channel. He had the Leafs to win last night. He hates the shootout. 5x3 Dom, thank you very much, by the way. He's a $5 per month patron. Patreon.com/TLC patrons. And Mr. Dom 5x3 is going to get himself a TLC OG t-shirt just for becoming a patron of the podcast, $5 per month. You can check it out right now, patreon.com/TLC patrons. And we hope to invite you that way. I hate the shootout, Mike. The shootout's the stupidest thing ever. And it's great because the Leafs never go to the shootout. So I was hoping they would conclude this thing in the 3-on-3 last night, which was a lot of fun. You got to admit, Mike, that was an absolute blast. And
it was wide open. It was exciting. I haven't seen many 3-on-3s that have been bad. The one thing I don't like is, the puck possession is so key in a 3-on-3, and these teams now continue to go back outside the offensive zone and sort of cycle around the blue line until they find an open. Whereas at the beginning of the 3-on-3, people were just going at the net, going willy-nilly, and now it's sort of been coached up to the point now where you don't expose yourself. But
I don't mind it, though, Mike. I don't mind the reset because with a 3-on-3, there's enough open ice, and you're going at enough of a clip that you're going to give yourself a chance. So the end-to-end stuff, I certainly don't mind. I think what they're trying to prevent is some banging and hacking away in one end, and then just a sort of a track meet down the other way, as opposed to that fluid back and forth. I don't give a damn. I don't give a shit. All I want them to do is score before this darn shootout, because the shootout rolls around and all of these snipers, like the first, 6 shooters, both sides combined, are shooting the puck. It's almost as if it's like the beer is getting warm. I just want to get this damn thing over with. That's the shooter. Shootout is so lackluster. I just can't see. And then John Tavares loses the puck. He's laughing, and I know the Leafs lost, and I'm sure there's some jerks on Twitter yelling at John Tavares for losing the puck. Who cares? Who cares?
It's ironic that it happens after the 4-goal game. So you go to the heights of, John Tavares is so great. Oh my God, what a
there's nothing
it
at
happens.
Stake, Mike. The Leafs, whether they got the 2 points or not, they weren't going to. They're not catching Boston. It's not like this is Nagano, Mike. It's the Czech Republic in Canada. Gretzky's on the bench, and John Tavares has the opportunity, and he loses the puck. I'd want to lose the puck too because the shootout's just so stupid.
Well, the only factor, the only consequence of the remaining 10 days is the workload that Babcock puts on Frederik Andersen. And it was interesting, some of the commentary at the morning skate yesterday before the game, where Frederik Andersen was, sort of non-committal about, he didn't want to talk about how many games, and Babcock basically, he was putting it on Andersen, saying, well, he's a man. He can tell us how many games he wants. And I'm like, okay, just tell us. It's not, there's no drama here. Just tell me okay, he's going to, Garrett Sparks is going to play this amount of games. Frederik Andersen is going to play this amount of games. Freddie needs a little bit of rest going into the playoffs. I thought he played pretty well yesterday, but you could see the frustration on him, especially on the one goal. I can't remember if it was the one that damn it, sorry. I'm trying to think of who. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially on the one goal where it was Morgan Riley and Ron Hainsey were on the ice centered in front of the net. I think it was Nolan Patrick, but I might be wrong. And those goals, I mean, all Anderson and Babcock talked about was Freddie entering the playoffs with swagger. And I know that Doug McLean said that word like over and over yesterday. But it's like, okay, how can you play with swagger when your team is deficient defensively and giving up, gild-edged chances? It's like, I mean, it's tough. You have to play more responsible defensively. You cannot depend on your goaltender to stand on his head, especially in the playoffs against the Bruins, and give up 40 shots a night. It's not a winning formula. So I don't know how he can increase his swagger with his team playing so badly in front of him defensively.
The Leafs are fanning on pucks in the ozone. The defensemen look like the Keystone Cops. There's Freddie Andersen with his swagger. He's booting back and forth like he's a hot shot. And, of course, he's plugging holes for insurance companies to make extra money doing these commercials. If you have Leafs Nation Network, and I feel like I'm the only person who watches that channel, they run that commercial. I've got to look at the actual company, but it's so funny. The woman's got a leak doing laundry, and he goes, "I'll stop it." And he's like, "What are you doing in this house? You're going to get arrested. You shouldn't be here." But then again, give me your blocker and let's plug this leak.
Well, yeah, you have to say, if players, want reasons to come to Toronto, the endorsement deals, not only for Tavares, but if Freddie Zach Hyman's doing insurance commercials on radio.
You know what? It's like, this is a pro Zach Hyman zone. I love that kid. I know you are, but there are some people who, because he scores empty netters and stuff. Don't disparage Zach Hyman, okay? The guy, I love that guy. He's going to be on this Cup winner. I'm telling you right now. But to your point about these kids these young men making money, Mitch Marner's making some dollars. I mean, when you're a 90-plus point player, and you're essentially people are going to hate me for this, but just pound for pound, down and dirty, the most skilled kid on the team. You should be making that kind of money, and I'm glad to see these guys just raking in the cake. We're going to do Forgotten Leafs in just like 2 or 3 minutes. If you don't know what that is, check out our playlist, Forgotten Leafs. It's a lot of fun. On Mike Babcock. When you get older, Mike, and you can attest to this because, I mean, you've crossed the threshold, my friend. You seem to get a little more crotchety, a little more distrusting, and a little more paranoid. Do you sense this in Mike Babcock now? Do you sense a fear in him that maybe he might be the guy? He might not be the guy to get this job done. And I'm not saying he's going to be fired anytime soon, but looking into his crystal ball, that his expiry date will come before the Leafs are ready to stamp this thing.
Well, I think it was Bob McKenzie had an observation that I thought was pretty apt, in the sense that this is really the first time Babcock has, reaped any criticism in his career. I mean, he didn't get a lot of it in Detroit. I mean, he won a Stanley Cup. He lost the Stanley Cup final. He made the playoffs every year. They had great teams. Now, they didn't advance in the first round for a number of years before he left for the Leafs. He had success in Anaheim. This is the first time he's really, he had a complete moratorium on criticism with the team starting out, last place in the league, and then getting to the playoffs. Now it's like the expectations are up. People expect this team to win. They've spent $11 million a year on Tavares. You've got the 1-2 punch with Tavares and Matthews. They expect results. And, he's going to get 100 points, but if they lose in the first round, there's already the expectation with it being Boston that they're going to have a tough time winning. And it's like, okay, you've been here now 4 years. You've gotten to the first round 3 times. You've lost all 3 times to probably, if they lose to Boston, to 3 better teams. That's on the management, but it's also on the coach to raise the level. Yeah. And I think, his reaction right now is in part because he's getting criticism, and nobody likes to be criticized.
Mike, let me just throw this at you, and then we're going to wrap up here because my kids are waking up. Listen, we on this podcast do not believe in blame culture. You are to blame. You got a problem with the pod, it's your fault. Because guess what? When there's a problem with this podcast, it's my fault. Don't stop blaming everybody else. Blame yourself. And that's how I look at Mike Babcock and the players. Austin Matthews can't look at Mike Babcock and say it's his fault for not playing me more. Seriously, Austin, you want to play 27 minutes a game? Bro, I don't think you have it in you. Your body's just not built for it. Mike Babcock, you're worried about the defense? Well, figure it out, man. You've got what you've got. And if you are the omniscient one, if you are the special one, then are you sure you are putting to use everything you have to its maximum ability? Kyle Dubas, bro, look what you've left your team with. Your defense is not championship caliber. Where the hell do you think these guys are going to go? What I'm saying is it's everyone's fault, Mike. And that's why when people start yapping at me about being overly negative or on Twitter going, I think this is the year, I want to, do one of those cold water challenges and just splash the hell out of people and say, wake the F up. The Leafs are on their way. It's not happening yet. There's not, and this, geez, and I'm going to do this because I'm scrambling a little bit here. Should we put our reality aside, our just the realism of everything that's taking place? Should we just put that aside and just start fantasizing and believing that it's going to happen this year? Should we just go to 100% imagination and hope and just push reality aside and forget about it? Or should we have a mixture of both here? Let's be real. Let's be hopeful. I mean, that's the question. Mike, it's everyone's fault right now. It's going to be a 100-point season. It's going to be overly a successful season. You beat the Bruins, there's your Stanley Cup. If you don't beat the Bruins and it's a crap show, back to the drawing board. You need help. You need guys moved out. Mike Babcock's not going anywhere. Kyle Dubas isn't going anywhere. You keep trying. If it's a great series and you lose, well, you're gonna have to eat the fact that it's another defeat, but also try to take into consideration the positives. All right, before we go, Forgotten Leafs, Mike, I dug up a couple of beauties for you. You're gonna like this. So essentially, the gist of this deal is I'm gonna bring up some stats of some Leafs who were not obscure, but had a bit of a name attached to them, yet we've totally forgotten about them. So our first one played one game with the Leafs in 03-04 and played 3 full seasons with the Maple Leafs, or two and a half full seasons with the Leafs from 05 to 2008. He had a 45-point season, a 42-point season. Not a very big guy, very crafty. And sometimes the reason I bring him up is because sometimes the way Mitch Marner shoots reminds me of the way this kid shoots or shot. He was nifty with passing, very diminutive, a 5th-round pick, Mike, out of Windsor, Ontario. But I'll tell you, he came out of the OHL, and this guy had won a scoring title, 2 seasons with over 100 points. Come on, Mike, you know who he is.
Would that be Kyle Wellwood?
Congratulations, my friend. You win absolutely nothing. Yeah, Kyle Wellwood was a fun little player. He was a nifty little player, but, at the vortex of playing for the Leafs in the mid-2000s, like it was...
Yeah, and he would fit in perfectly with this team because he was all offensive zone and no defensive zone type of guy.
All right, we'll wrap up with our last Forgotten Leaf. 1st-round pick, 17th overall in 1993. You want to talk about a great OHL career. This guy had 2 100-point seasons, 118 one season, 55 goals, 87 assists, 142 points in his final OHL season. So this goes back to the early 90s. He was a point machine, Mike. He played 552 career NHL games with Caps, Bruins, Kings, and played his final season with the Maple Leafs. And the guy lumbered out there. But I'll tell you, 66 games had 60 points. And this is back in the era. This would be after the lockout. And this is when, a 60-point season meant a lot more than it did, 10 years earlier. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. You have me stumped.
Jason Allison.
Oh yes, okay, yes, yeah. No, please, Jason Allison would not set the land speed record. He could have been one of the slowest players I've ever seen. Him and Lindros being signed after the lockout was a complete misread of the NHL when it was going faster, and the Leafs signed Lindros, who was not the same guy that was drafted first overall years back, and Allison was a great center especially with the
Mm-hmm.
Bruins, and he just was lumbering. And I remember he tried to come back a few years later, and he was even slower at that point.
Well, he's a London Knights legend. Just ask him. Michael, gotta go. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Norman.
We would like to thank Vanguard Northeast Realty in Scarborough, title sponsor of the Leafs Convo, demonstrating passion for the industry and a superior level of excellence in selling, leasing, and marketing your property. Vanguard Northeast Realty.